346-8 Plastic Concrete Sampling and Testing. QC tests include air content, temperature, slump, and preparing compressive strength cylinders for testing at later dates. In addition, calculate the water to cementitious material ratio in accordance with FM 5-501 for compliance to the approved mix design. Ensure that each truck has a rating plate and a valid mixer identification card issued by the department. Ensure that the revolution counter on the mixer is working properly and calibration of the water dispenser has been performed within the last 12 months. Reject any concrete batches that are delivered in trucks that do not have mixer identification cards. Remove the mixer identification card when a truck mixer is discovered to be in non-compliance and the mixer deficiencies cannot be repaired immediately. When the mixer identification card is removed for non-compliance, make note of the deficiency or deficiencies found and forward the card to the district materials and research engineer who has producer QC plan acceptance authority. Perform plastic concrete test on the initial delivery of each concrete design mix each day. Ensure QC technicians meeting the requirements of Section 105 are present and performing tests throughout the placement operation. Ensure one technician is present and performing tests throughout the placement operation at each placement site. If a project has multiple concrete placements at the same site, identify the number of technicians in the quality control plan to ensure minimum sampling and testing frequencies are met. Ensure that the equipment used for delivery, placement, and finishing meets the requirements of this specification. When a truck designated for QC testing arrives at the discharge site, a subsequent truck may also discharge once a representative sample has been collected from the QC truck and while awaiting the results of QC testing. Reject non-complying loads at the job site. Ensure that corrections are made on subsequent loads immediately. Cease concrete discharge of all trucks if the QC truck has failing test. Perform plastic properties test on all trucks prior to the first concrete truck and the corrected truck. When more than one truck is discharging into a pump simultaneously, only the truck designated for QC testing may discharge into the pump to obtain a representative sample of concrete from the QC truck only. Furnish sufficient concrete of each design mix as required by the engineer for verification testing. When the engineer's verification test results do not compare with the QC plastic properties test results within the limits defined by the Independent Assurance IA checklist comparison criteria located in Materials Manual Chapter 5, disposition of the concrete will be at the option of the contractor. On concrete placements consisting of only one load of concrete, perform initial sampling and testing in accordance with this section. The acceptance sampling and plastic properties test may be taken from the initial portion of the load. If any of the QC plastic properties tests fail, reject the remainder of that load and any other loads that have begun discharging, terminate the lot and notify the engineer. Make cylinders representing that lot from the same sample of concrete. Following termination of a lot, obtain samples from a new load and perform plastic properties tests until such time as the water to cementitious material ratio, air content, temperature, and slump comply with the specification requirements. Initiate a new lot once the testing indicates compliance with specification requirements. Suspend production when any 5 loads in 2 days of production of the same design mix are outside the specified tolerances. make the necessary revisions to concrete operations, and increase the frequency of QC testing in the QCP to bring the concrete within allowable tolerances. Obtain the engineer's approval of the revisions before resuming production. After production resumes, obtain the engineer's approval before returning to the normal frequency of QC testing. If concrete placement stops for more than 90 minutes, perform initial plastic properties testing on the next batch and continue the lot. Cylinders cast for that lot will represent the entire lot. When the department performs independent verification, the contractor may perform the same test on the concrete at the same time. The department will compare results based on the independent assurance checklist tolerances. When the department's independent verification test results do not meet the requirements of this section, the engineer may require the contractor to revise the QCP. 346-9, Acceptance, Sampling, and Testing. 346-9.1, General. Perform plastic properties test in accordance with 346-8 and cast a set of 3 QC cylinders for all structural concrete incorporated into the project. Take these acceptance samples randomly as determined by a random number generator, acceptable to the department. The department will independently perform verification plastic properties test and cast a set of verification cylinders. The verification cylinders will be the same size cylinder selected by the contractor from a separate sample from the same load of concrete as the contractor's QC sample. For each set of QC cylinders verified by the department, cast one additional cylinder from the same sample and identify it as a QC hold cylinder. The department will also cast one additional hold cylinder from each verification sample. All cylinders will be clearly identified as outlined in the sample lot numbering system, instructions located on the State Materials Office website. Deliver the QC samples, including the QC hold cylinder, to the final curing facility in accordance with ASTM C31. At this time, the department will deliver the verification samples, including the verification hold cylinder, to their final curing facility. Test the QC laboratory cured samples for compressive strength at the age of 28 days or any other specified age in a laboratory meeting and maintaining at all times the qualification requirements listed in Section 105. The QC testing laboratory will input the compressive strength test results into the department's sample tracking database within 24 hours. When the QC testing laboratory cannot input the compressive strength test results into the department's sample tracking database within 24 hours, the QC testing laboratory will notify the verification testing laboratory within 24 hours of testing the cylinder and provide the verification testing laboratory the compressive strength test results. Ensure the compressive strength results are input into the department sampling tracking database within 72 hours of determining the compressive strength of the cylinders. The department will compare the verification samples results with the corresponding QC sample results. In the event that one set of compressive strength data for a set of cylinder falls outside the range of the other set of cylinders, use the lower range of average compressive strength to determine the comparison criteria. Based on this comparison, the department will determine if the comparison criteria, as shown in Table 7, has been met. When the difference between QC and verification is less than or equal to the comparison criteria, the QC data is verified. When the difference between QC and verification data exceeds the comparison criteria, the data is not verified and the engineer will initiate the resolution procedure. Table 7, 346-9.2, Sampling Frequency. As a minimum, sample and test concrete of each design mix for water, to cementitious material ratio, air content, temperature, slump, and compressive strength once per lot as defined by Table 8. When a mixed design is used for a different application, the lot is defined by the application. When more than one concrete production facility is used for the same mixed design, describe the method of sampling, testing, and lot numbering in the QC plan. The engineer will randomly verify one of every 4 consecutive lots of each design mix based on a random number generator. The department may perform independent verification testing to verify compliance with specification requirements. All QC activities, calculations, and inspections will be randomly confirmed by the department. Table 8. 346-9.2.1 Reduced frequency for acceptance test. The lot size may represent 100 cubic yards when produced at the same mixed design at the same concrete production facility for the same prime contractor and subcontractor on a given contract. Submit test results indicating the average compressive strength is greater than 2 standard deviations above the specified minimum strength for that class of concrete. Base calculations on a minimum of 10 consecutive strength test results for a class 4 or higher, or a minimum of 5 consecutive strength results for class 3 or lower. The average of the consecutive compressive strength test results based on the class of concrete can be established using historical data from a previous department project. The tests from the previous department project must be within the last 60 calendar days or may also be established by a succession of samples on the current project. Only one sample can be taken from each lot. Test data must be from a laboratory meeting the requirements of Section 105. Obtain department approval before beginning reduced frequency lots. If at any time a strength test is not verified, or the average strength of the previous 10 or 5 consecutive samples based on the class of concrete from the same mixed design and the same production facility is less than the specified minimum plus 2 standard deviations, return to the maximum production quantity represented by the lot as defined in Table 8. Notify the engineer that the maximum production rate is reinstated. In order to reinstate reduced frequency, submit a new set of strength test results. 346-9.3 Strength Test Definition. The strength test of a lot is defined as the average of the compressive strength test of 3 cylinders cast from the same sample of concrete from the lot. 346-9.4 Acceptance of concrete. Ensure that the hardened concrete strength test results are obtained in accordance with 346-9.3. Do not discard a cylinder strength test result based on the low strength below the specified minimum strength as per the provisions of this section. When one of the 3 QC cylinders from a lot is lost, missing, damaged, or destroyed, determination of compressive strength will be made by averaging the remaining 2 cylinders. If more than one QC cylinder from a lot is lost, missing, damaged, or destroyed, the contractor will core the structure at no additional expense to the department to determine the compressive strength. Acceptance of lot may be based on verification data at the discretion of the engineer. Obtain the approval of the engineer to core and of the core location prior to coring. For each QC cylinder that is lost, missing, damaged, or destroyed, payment for that lot will be reduced by $750 per 1,000 psi of the specified design strength. Example, loss of 2 Class 4 drill shaft QC cylinders that has no verification data will require the element to be cored, and a pay reduction will be assessed for 4,000 psi divided by 1,000 psi times $750 times 2 equals $6,000. This reduction will be in addition to any pay adjustment for low strength. When QC compressive strength test results are not verified, the resolution procedure will be used to accept or reject the concrete. Maintain the hold cylinders until the verification of the compressive strength test results. When QC test results are verified, the engineer will accept the concrete based on QC test results. The engineer will accept at full pay only lots of concrete represented by plastic property results which meet the requirements of the approved mix design, and strength test results which equal or exceed the respective specified minimum strength. 346-9.5 Resolution Procedure. The department may initiate an IA review of sampling and testing methods. The resolution procedure may consist of, but need not be limited to, a review of sampling and testing of fresh concrete, calculation of water to cementitious material ratio, handling of cylinders, curing procedures, and compressive strength testing. Compare the verification sample results with the verification hold cylinder results. Comparison results must not be greater than 14%. Compare the QC sample results with the QC hold cylinder results. Comparison results must not be greater than the comparison requirements in Table 7. Core samples of the hardened concrete may be required. The engineer will determine through the resolution procedure whether the QC strength test results or the verification strength test are deemed to be the most accurate. Lots will then be considered to be verified. When the engineer cannot determine which strength test results are the most accurate, the concrete represented by the 4 consecutive lots will be evaluated based on the QC data. The engineer will inform the QC and the verification lab within 3 calendar days of the acceptance compressive strength test to transport their hold cylinders to the resolution lab. The QC and verification laboratories will transport their own hold cylinder to the resolution testing laboratory within 72 hours after the engineer notifies the contractor that a resolution is required. In addition, the engineer will ensure that the QC and verification hold cylinders are tested within 7 calendar days of the acceptance strength test. The resolution investigation will determine the strength test results for each of the 4 or less lots. When the QC strength test results are deemed to be the most accurate, the QC strength test results will represent the 4 or less consecutive lots, and the department will pay for the resolution testing and investigation. When the verification strength test results are deemed to be the most accurate, the department will assess a $1,000 pay reduction for the cost of the resolution investigation. The results of the resolution procedure will be forwarded to the contractor within 5 working days after completion of the investigation. If the department finds deficiencies based on the contractor's QCP, the engineer may suspend that part of the QCP. When the QC plan is suspended, submit corrective actions for approval to the engineer. The engineer may take up to 5 working days to review corrective actions to the QCP. The engineer will not allow changes to contract time or completion dates. Incur all delay costs and other costs associated with QC plan suspension and reapproval. 346-9.6 Small quantities of concrete. When a project has a total planned quantity of less than 50 cubic feet The concrete will be accepted based on the satisfactory compressive strength of the QC cylinders. Provide certification to the engineer that the concrete was batched and placed in accordance with the concrete documents. Submit a quality control plan for the concrete placement operation in accordance with Section 105. In addition, the engineer may conduct independent verification, IV, testing as identified in 346-9. Evaluate the concrete in accordance with 346-10 at the discretion of the engineer. 346-10. Investigation of low-strength concrete for structural adequacy. 346-10.1. General. When a concrete acceptance strength test results falls more than 500 psi below the specified minimum strength and the department determines that the investigation is necessary, make an investigation into the structural adequacy of the lot of concrete represented by that acceptance strength test results at no additional expense to the department. The engineer may also require the contractor to perform additional strength testing as necessary to determine structural adequacy of the concrete. Furnish either a structural analysis performed by the specialty engineer to establish strength adequacy or drilled core samples as specified in 346-10.3 to determine the in-place strength of the lot of concrete in question at no additional expense to the department. Obtain the engineer's approval before taking any core samples. When the concrete is deemed to have low strength, obtain and test the cores and report the data to the engineer within 14 calendar days of the 28-day compressive strength test. Core strength test results obtained from the structure will be accepted by both the contractor and the department as the in-place strength of the lot of concrete in question. The core strength test results will be final and used in lieu of the cylinder strength test results for determination of structural adequacy and any pay adjustment. The department will calculate the strength value to be the average of the compressive strengths of the three individual cores. This will be accepted as the actual measured value. 346-10.2. Determination of structural adequacy. If core strength test results are less than 500 psi below the specified minimum strength, consider the concrete represented by the core structurally adequate. If the core strength test results are more than 500 psi below the specified minimum strength, the department will consider the concrete represented by the core as structurally questionable. Submit a structural analysis performed by the specialty engineer. If the results of the structural analysis indicate adequate strength to serve its intended purpose with adequate durability and is approved by the department, the contractor may leave the concrete in place subject to the requirements of 346-11. Otherwise, remove and replace the lot of concrete in question at no additional expense to the department. 346-10.3. Coring for determination of structural adequacy. Notify the engineer 48 hours prior to taking core samples. The engineer will select the size and location of the drilled cores so that the structure is not impaired and does not sustain permanent damage after repairing the core holes. Sample 3 undamaged cores taken from the sample approximate location where the questionable concrete is represented by the low-strength concrete test cylinders. Repair core holes after samples are taken. 346-10.4. Core conditioning and testing. Test the cores in accordance with ASTM C42. Test the cores after obtaining samples within 7 calendar days. 346-11.11. Pay adjustments for low strength concrete. 346-11.1 General. Any lot of concrete failing to meet the specified minimum strength as defined in 346-3, 346-9, 346-10, and satisfactorily meet all other requirements of the contract documents, including structural adequacy, the engineer will individually reduce the price of each low-strength lot in accordance with this section. 346-11.2 Basis for pay adjustments. When an acceptance strength test result falls more than 500 psi below the specified minimum strength, core samples may be obtained in accordance with ASTM C42 from the respective lot of concrete, represented by the low acceptance strength test results for determining pay adjustments. A price adjustment will be applied to the certified invoice price the contractor paid for the concrete or the precast product. Do not core hardened concrete for determining pay adjustments when the 28-day acceptance cylinder strength test results are less than 500 psi below the specified minimum strength. The results of the strength test of the drilled cores subject to 346-11.5 and 346-11.6 will be used as the acceptance results are less than 500 psi below the specified minimum strength. The results of strength tests of the drilled cores subject to 346-11.5 and 346-11.6 will be used as the acceptance results and will be used in lieu of the cylinder strength test results for determining pay adjustments. In precast operations, excluding pre-stressed, ensure that the producer submits acceptable core sample test results to the engineer. The producer may elect to use the products in accordance with 346-11. Otherwise, replace the concrete in question at no additional cost to the department. For pre-stressed concrete, core sample testing is not allowed for pay adjustments. The results of the cylinder strength test will be used to determine material acceptance and pay adjustments. 346-11.3 Coring for determination of pay adjustments. Obtain the cores in accordance with 346-10.3. 346-11.4 Core conditioning and testing. Test the cores in accordance with 346-10.4. 346-11.5 Core strength representing equivalent 28-day strength. For cores tested no later than 42 calendar days after the concrete was cast, the engineer will accept the core strengths obtained as representing the equivalent 28-day strength of the lot of concrete in question. The engineer will calculate the strength value to be the average of the compressive strengths of the three individual cores. The engineer will accept the strength at its actual measured value. 346-11.6 Core strength adjustments. For cores tested later than 42 calendar days after the concrete was cast, the engineer will establish the equivalency between 28-day strength and strength at ages after 42 calendar days. The engineer will relate the strength at the actual test age to 28-day strength for the design mix represented by the cores using the following relationship. 346-11.6.1 Portland cement concrete without prozone or slag. Equivalent 28-day strength, FC 28 equals 1 divided by F times the average core strength times 100, where F is equal to 4.4 plus 39.1 inches X minus 3.1 inches X squared, type 1 cement. F is equal to a negative 17.8 plus 46.3 inches X minus negative times F is equal to a negative 17.8 plus 46.3 inches X times a negative 3.3 inches X squared, type 2 cement. F is equal to 48.5 plus 19.4 inches x times negative 1.4 inches x squared, type 3 cement. X is equal to the number of days since the concrete was placed. In is equal to natural log. 346 minus 346 dash 11.6.2 Polyzonic cement concrete, equivalent 28-day compressive strength equals FC 28, where F to T sub C 28 equals 0.490, F to T sub C T E times 8.31 divided by T to the 0.276 type 1 cement. F to the T sub C 28 equals 0.730 F to the T sub C times T times E times 2.89 divided by T to the 0.514 type 2 cement. F to the T sub C 28 equals 0.483 F to the T sub C times T times E times 5.38 divided by T to the 0.191 type 3 cement. FC sub T is equal to the average core strength at time T PSI. T is equal to the time compressive strength was measured days. 346-11.6.3 slag cement concrete, equivalent 28-day compressive strength equals FC 28, where F to the T sub C 28 is equal to 0.794 F to the T sub C times T times E times 7.06 divided by T to the 1.06 type 1 cement. F to the T sub C 28 is equal to 0.730 F to the T sub C times T times E times 6.02 divided by T to the 0.747 type 2 cement. F to the T sub C 28 is equal to 0.826 F to the T sub C times T times E times 2.36 divided by T to the 0.672 type 3 cement. F sub C sub T is equal to average core strength at the time T PSI. T is equal to compressive strength was measured days. 346-11.7 calculating pay adjustments. The engineer will determine payment reductions for low strength concrete accepted by the department and represented by either cylinder or core strength test results below the specified minimum strength in accordance with the following. Reduction in pay is equal to the reduction in percentage of concrete cylinder strength. Specified minimum strength minus actual strength divided by specified minimum strength. For the elements that payments are based on the per foot basis, the engineer will adjust the price reduction from cubic yard basis to per foot basis. Determine the total linear feet of the element that are affected by low strength concrete samples and apply the adjusted price reduction accordingly. 346-12 pay reduction for plastic properties. A rejected load in accordance with 346-6.4 is defined as the entire quantity of concrete contained within a single ready-mix truck or other single delivery vehicle, regardless of what percentage of the load was placed. If concrete fails a plastic properties test and is thereby a rejected load, but its placement continues after completion of a plastic properties test having a failure result, payment for the concrete will be reduced. The pay reduction for cast-in-place concrete will be twice the certified invoice price per cubic yard of the quantity of concrete in the rejected load. The pay reduction for placing a rejected load of concrete into a precast product will be applied to that percentage of the precast product that is composed of the concrete in the rejected load. The percentage will be converted to a reduction factor, which is a numerical value greater than 0, but not greater than 1. The precast product payment reduction will be twice the contractor's build price from the producer for the precast product multiplied by the reduction factor. If the engineer authorizes placement of the concrete, even though plastic properties require rejection, there will be no pay reduction based on plastic properties failures. However, any other pay reductions will apply.